Hello YouTube, this is Dakota from Bowtie Media, and today we've got a brand new review of Tokyo Machine's Factory Reset EP. Before we go any further, yes, this was indeed voted on by the Bowtie Gang, so if you want to be a part of weekly voting and decide what videos get produced, you can join channel membership today. It feels a little weird to say it, but after almost a full decade since his debut, Tokyo Machine is here, finally, with his first project of any real extended length. We were getting single after single after single after single after single for pretty much 9 years straight. And while it's not a bad thing by any means, I'm glad to see Tokyo finally tackling at least an EP. And what an interesting time and style to do it in, I must say. From the get-go, Tokyo Machine established himself as a happy-go-lucky, carefree, energetic producer that typically stuck to an aggressive electro house and bass house sound. Tokyo had this distinct tone and branding for many years that has quickly become a fan favorite for many in the EDM space. So much of a fan favorite that after years of releasing like 90% of his tracks on Monstercat, he finally made the natural, I would say, step creating his own label in early 2023 with Chompo. And well, Chompo is already through their third compilation record that sees support from artists like MDK, Guy Arthur, Boom Kitty, Milk, and many more. It does feel right that Tokyo has kind of come back for his debut EP to Monstercat. And not that it really matters where a record gets released from, it is a pretty kind of cool full circle moment, I think. And that brings us to today with the official and full release of Tokyo Machine's debut EP, Factory Reset. Over time, the brand and identity of Tokyo Machine has slowly become less chibi-like and cutesy, and a little bit more intense, and a little bit more lifelike. And I think this EP is a solid embodiment of that sentiment. Straying away from his typical electro and bass house production, Factory Reset is potentially a soft reset on his signature sound, opting for a pretty much entirely dubstep project. We've had hits of dubstep here and there from Tokyo over the years, and his style has never seemed to go too far away from that genre, but I was definitely surprised that after years of establishing himself as one of the premier bass and electro house producers, even making a label with that identity at its core, that his debut project would be something different. But in reality, it really isn't all that different. Just a mini side tangent here. I don't love being so anal about genres and putting artists into boxes. Yes, it helps categorize music. Yes, it's helpful to help find other stuff you like and of similar sound. And yes, it's an easy way to describe music. But in the end, and I think in this case in particular, Factory Reset may be a dubstep EP at its core, but it's also a Tokyo Machine EP at its core. The slight genre switch up is really just a useful descriptor. But regardless, Factory Reset is a 5-track EP that spans 15 minutes in length and is primarily a solo project with one real production feature on the final track. The Furious kicks things off and really establishes that darker Tokyo Machine mood from the get-go. I also think this track is the best bridge from his classic bass house sound to a more modern dubstep style, the perfect opener for both older Tokyo fans and newer ones. The first half of this track sees Tokyo primarily playing around with this very dense synth sustain that brings a ton of energy to the drops and doesn't overstay its welcome at the same time. Then the back half, just like most of the tracks on this EP, has a bit of a slight genre switch up, this time opting in for a more typical bass house beat, then hitting a little pseudo-rhythm thing. MVP is the second track and release single from this EP that has a very similar song structure to the first one, in which Tokyo keeps things rolling with an aggressive dubstep first half, only to switch it up for the finale. This dubstep cut, though, is a more typical sound to what you'd hear in the industry norm, with a kind of 1-2 snare kick that's not quite 140 dubstep, but awfully close. And then, in the spirit of all things techno in the EDM space right now, Tokyo comes down with a hard techno final movement just to quickly shift over to a more kind of simplistic trap sound for the final movement of this track. Well, this song in particular has a structure and style that very aligns with the styles and trends of EDM in 2025. I don't think it's necessarily holding the track back by any means. Screw Your Face Up is the middle point of this EP, and while it's the only truly bass house track of the project, it does sound like it's in a whole new era of Tokyo Machine. It's got a bit of a more bounce to it, I would say, and stays true to the current, more aggressive Tokyo Machine soundscape. When considering the whole track list, I think this probably ended up actually being my least favorite of the bunch, and that is ironically because it's similar enough to the last decade of his production that I just thought that there were other songs that were close enough to this, but had a certain X factor to them that maybe this one didn't. But that plays right into the lead single being Lock and Load. That is actually one of my favorites from the EP, and definitely I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure, but I mean, I like this one quite a bit. It's got a more typical dubstep production and doesn't have a ton of variety within the drop movements themselves, but this tune has a certain Tokyo charm that the other four just don't have for me. I think the vocal hook on this track is the strongest vocal work of all the project, and I was especially a fan of the kind of pseudo speed house final movement, giving the track a bit more of a driving finale. And with the sort of halftime first dubstep movement, the back end feels like it picks up the pace quite a bit. But then Watch Out with Guy Arthur closes out the track list and is both my favorite and seemingly a fan favorite as well from the project. The first dubstep movement is a little bit more reserved and pulled back comparatively to the rest of the project, but comes in swinging with a finale of finales here, tackling a distinctly Bridum palette. This track to me just embodies modern Tokyo Machine in all facets. The more dubstep-leaning sound design, a more rigid production, all the classic Tokyo elements in the bridge, and even the constant work nowadays with Guy Arthur. It's honestly quite a treat to hear how his sound has evolved and changed over the years into where it currently stands today. And while I don't think this is his greatest work to date, it's still a solid showcase of his musical prowess and now signature sound design. It's wild to me that it took almost an entire decade to even get an EP, but hey, it's pretty solid, so I can't complain. With all that being said, I'm going to give Tokyo Machine's Factory Reset EP a Bowtied 7 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think of this debut project from Tokyo Machine. Did you really, really like it? Did you think it was somewhere in between? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comment section below. But other than that, I'm Dakota from Bowtied Media, and I'll see you guys in another video.